In this video, we're going to learn how to complete the confirmation of participation form for family physician offices, pediatricians, and combination offices that may include family physicians, pediatricians, and/or specialists. Let's begin on the CII-CPAR webpage. First, before you begin, the clinic and team should be engaged and interested, and you should have used the engagement tools. One tool set I want to point out are the EMR resources specific to an EMR. Usually before beginning, a clinic and the physician participants want to understand how CII-CPAR works in their EMR. These PowerPoint presentations provide an end-to-end view, including the privacy of information, how to keep information confidential, how the EMR maps to this community encounter digest, are all available here. There are many parts to the CII-CPAR webpage, and the information is organized in different ways on different parts of the pages. First, let's find the form. It's in the Forms section. There are two forms that are available. One is for up to 10 participants, and one is for up to 25 participants. I'm going to use the one for up to 10 participants. In this web browser, it opens right away, but in some web browsers, it might be in your Downloads folder. Before you begin, you want to save the folder to your desktop, and then use that form as you go. Be sure to save your changes as you're making them. First, let's take a look at the form. Really, there's only 2 pages to fill in with information. Page 3 are instructions. Please refer to them because they will provide additional guidance. Starting on page 4, there's some guidance on where to find the facility ID and the specialty skill code. You'll need both these pieces of information. The second only if you have participants that are going to submit consult reports. Let's go back to the beginning of the form. So the first thing that you're going to enter is the clinic name. Be sure it matches the name on clinic letterhead. Include the address, and the next piece is the facility ID. Remember, I just showed you where you can find that in the EMR, but you can also ask the billing clerk in the clinic because they would also know the facility ID. The person who is the Netcare Access Administrator would know the WDFA key. Both these are unique codes that are used to identify clinics. Next, you want to select the EMR that the clinic is using. It's important for eHealth Support Services, who's going to receive this form, to understand if the clinic is using a shared EMR. This is often an EMR in the cloud, and they might have more than one front clinic that uses the same EMR. In that case, there's one record for each patient in the database. If you know if it's a shared EMR, click Yes, and enter the names of the other clinics that the EMR is shared with. At this point, it should be the practice facilitator who's collaborating with the clinic team member to complete this form. Choose from the drop-down the name of the PCN the facilitator is from, as well as their detailed information. Next is identifying a site liaison. A site liaison is a point person at the clinic who's going to be the primary contact for eHealth Support Services during implementation. It's very often the clinic manager. Put their name, role, and contact information here. It's highly recommended to have an alternate, a person that can be contacted if the site liaison is not available. Next, we're going to go to Part B, which is about clinic readiness. The first 3 boxes pertain to the privacy impact assessment. It is highly recommended that someone at the clinic complete the Privacy Impact Assessment Update Self-Assessment. It's found by clicking on this link. This informs the clinic ahead of time if they need to update their PIA and what kind of update it might be. Also indicate the date of the last time the PIA was updated. Next, the clinic does need to be live on Alberta Netcare before go live. If you're not live, indicate no or not sure. If the clinic is not live, eHealth Support Services will direct you to how to become live on Alberta Netcare. A good indication that a clinic is live is if staff are using Alberta Netcare at the clinic. The next readiness criteria pertains to panel readiness. Of course, this only pertains to participants with panels. Please complete the panel readiness checklist ahead of time. You should be able to click every box on the panel readiness checklist before participating in CII-CPAR. The next box is informing eHealth Support Services if the clinic is part of a capitation program or a clinical alternative relationship plan. Now let's move on to Part C, which is about the participating providers. A participating provider can be a physician, or it can be an allied health team member that books appointments in the EMR and is wishing to send encounters. I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and or consult reports. So a provider can be a physician or an allied health team member. Indicate their name and email address. It's important to choose the PCN affiliation for each provider. Sometimes we might have a clinic with different PCN affiliations for different physicians. So what does it mean to choose encounters? If a participant is choosing encounters, what the EMR does is there are mapped fields that pull to the Community Encounter Digest that sits in Netcare. The mapping is included in the EMR information for the specific EMR. The next participation type is for panels and e-notifications. This is for providers with a panel, so that would be a physician or a nurse practitioner, and they would participate, send their panels to CPAR. That tells the system who is that patient's primary provider, and e-notifications come into the EMR to tell that primary provider when the patient has had a hospital admission, hospital discharge, emergency department discharge, or day surgery. If a participant is participating in panels, they are also bundled with encounters. The next participation type is for consult reports. This would be for a provider that receives consult requests, completes the consult, and writes a consult report in return. A copy of that consult report can be submitted and shared with Alberta Netcare. If a provider is choosing consult reports, the specialty skill code needs to be included. As I mentioned, scroll down to page 4 and there are instructions on where to find this in the EMR. The specialty skill code here must match how it's labeled in the EMR. After completing all the providers, up to 10 on this form or up to 25 on the other form, there are 3 more areas that we want verification that information has been exchanged. Although the first area is about clinic governance. This is asking if the clinic has somebody that is somewhat called a primary custodian. They're authorized to sign the CII Privacy Impact Assessment endorsement letter for the project. If a clinic has a primary custodian, click yes and put their name here. Otherwise, click no. Clicking no means every custodian in the clinic who is participating will sign the CII PIA endorsement letter. Okay, Part E and F are about awareness. So part E is that the providers that are participating are aware of how their EMR will share information with Netcare, what goes up to the healthcare data repository, and how to keep information confidential in the EMR, of which the simplest way is to not document in a mapped field. Also aware that their EMR vendor will be doing some configuration in the EMR and a special statement for TELUS users. Initial here that the providers are aware of this information. Part F is about training for providers and participants at the clinic. There are 4 areas. This information can be found in that PowerPoint I mentioned end to end that shows how it works in each EMR, or the information is also available as individual information sheets on the CII-CPAR webpage. The first relates to privacy. One of the important things is before go live, the clinic will post a health collection notice poster in the clinic. Another option to putting up the poster is putting the information on the clinic website, including it in a patient registration page, or it could be part of an e-form that a patient fills out. The second area is about roles and responsibilities. The roles and responsibilities document describes the role of the site liaison being that point person, but 2 other individuals. One is the access administrator, similar to a Netcare access administrator, but for CPAR, and somebody that will become the panel administrator. This will be a person who will download panel reports from the Central Patient Attachment Registry. The third is again awareness of how EMR map data appears in Netcare and the mapping documents for each EMR support this. And finally, that the clinic knows that they need to be panel ready to participate. Once there is awareness and everybody is on board, initial here, and that's the final part of the form. Save your changes and then email the completed form to ehealthciimplementations@cgi.com. This goes to eHealth Support Services, and ensure that the practice facilitator is copied.